Hi, this is going to be the most detailed roadmap to become a data engineer. There are so many technologies in market, so we will understand which all technologies we shall focus as a priority and learn them first. And for important technologies, we will also focus topic wise which topics we shall learn with a high priority and which ones with low priority and which ones to avoid at a starting level. So this is going to be very detailed and all these topics I have created a nice Excel and provide a link in the description also that you can download and use for reference for future use. And to give you some confidence that you are getting it from the right person. So myself, I'm Narinder Kumar. I have 12 years of experience in IT industry. Out of that, I have spent 8 years in data engineering and I have completed all the important certifications from both Databricks and Microsoft side. And recently, I won the Databricks Global Hackathon as well, where participants from more than 16 countries were there. And with this info, let's get started. We will start first by understanding the technologies to learn. And as you may be aware, so what data engineers do is there are different data sources which have data. We need to first ingest the data, then we do data transformation. After that, we make the data available for serving. And along the way, we store the data as well as the metadata into some storage. And to orchestrate all these process, we need some orchestration tool as well. And then the data is made available to be consumed by Power BI, Tableau, or any other BI services. And out of this entire flow, this is the main field or area which comes under data engineering. So data sources are maintained by separate teams, and normally the consumption side is also maintained by separate teams. So data engineers, they need to work on these areas. And out of all these areas, the most important or time spent area is data transformation. And for that, the most important tool, it is Apache Spark. It was brought up in 2013, and since then it has been the most important tool for data engineers. So we shall always start with this one, and this is also going to be the most important tool throughout your data engineering career. And apart from Apache Spark, Spark itself is available as SQL as well. So SQL is a very common, very easy language to learn. So this anyway we shall focus on. And Python also we shall learn. So PySpark also is important. And along with PySpark, we shall learn some basics of Python as well, so that we can do things dynamically when it comes to writing PySpark code. And to write this code, we need some place to run it. And that is where Databricks notebooks are the best place to run them. So Databricks environment and the notebooks we will be learning. And then to store the data properly, Delta Lake, it has been the most efficient and most famous storage of storing our tables into a data lake. And Unity Catalog in Databricks is used for managing the metadata. So these also are very important to learn for us. And to make the data available for serving, we need to store it somewhere or make it available in an efficient way. That is where again Databricks plays a vital role. And to orchestrate these notebooks or ingestion pipelines, we can or cannot use Databricks jobs. It is optional, but many projects they use it. And as you can see, I have kept the data ingestion piece and storage piece here as well as blank. And that is where there comes different option. So there are different cloud technologies like Azure, AWS, GCP. Out of all these, depending on the project and company requirement, different clients and people they prefer different cloud vendors. But I would say that AWS and Azure are going in very high demand, and we can pick any one of these. And if you are new to both of these, then I will recommend to start with Azure. Because myself, I am from Azure background. I find it very easy to learn. It is in very much high demand, and growth wise also I see a lot of growth opportunities in future. And that's the reason that for working even for 8 years, I am not planning to switch to AWS. Azure, it has so many requirements. So coming to Azure, to start with, for data ingestion, we shall learn for Azure Data Factory, and the same is used for orchestration as well, which is very, very strong and easy and user friendly service. And to store our actual data in form of Delta Lake, we need the actual cloud storage, which is Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So these are all the services we shall learn to start with. And these are enough also to become a data engineer as well. There are some other services which may or may not be used depending on the project. But if you are looking to become a new data engineer, then learning these technologies, it is more than enough. Even if you, let's say, know Apache Spark, Python, SQL, and Databricks notebook with a very high confidence and in good detail, and along with that, if you learn Databricks core services, then also you can clear any interview. Even ADF having some basic knowledge is enough. But if, let's say, if you become very, very strong in Apache Spark and Databricks, then this can also be optional. Let's say if somebody comes for an interview to me, right, if that person is very strong in this area, then I can teach that person ADF quickly and he can pick up. So that is where we shall core, as a core services, we shall focus on these main technologies. So these are the high level technologies. And what I would also say is there are some technologies which are called out by other creators, and some people, they recommend these to become a data engineer as well, like use of Gen AI, Airflow, Snowflake, CI/CD. So all these technologies in itself, these are really good technologies, and at some point of time these can be very important for project specific, but in general these are not used widely, and at a starting level we shall avoid it, and these are not mandatory to become a data engineer. Similarly, if you are starting with Azure cloud, so you may have heard about Azure Synapse, Microsoft Fabric. Fabric is a very new, really good service which is picking up now. But so far, like there are not many projects that are there on Fabric, and not many openings are there where people are looking for. There can be some very specific requirements which you can find, but in general, like the people working in Azure, like myself, project wise, we still prefer ADF plus Databricks. So that is where learning Databricks will add lot more value than focusing on these technologies as a starting point of your career. So now, as you understand at a high level what all things we shall focus on, now let's go into more deeper level, and technology wise and topic wise, let's understand what things we shall focus on. So here is the Excel that I was talking about. The link is there in the description if you want it. So these are all the topics we are going to discuss in detail right now. We will start with Spark. So Spark, like I was saying, it is the heart of data engineering, and all the core topics of Spark, those we shall learn with a high priority or with a high knowledge level that will be required. And if you see here, I have specified 3 levels, like data engineer level, senior data engineer level, and architect level. What shall be the knowledge level as per our normal industry standards? And data engineer, it means like the people who has, let's say, 0 to 5 years of experience. SDE are, let's say, 4 to 8. There is some overlap always, 4 to 8 or 9 years. And architect people, these are, let's say, 8 or 9 years and above. So those comes in architect bucket. So if you look at it, so all the core topics like Spark architecture, the deployment modes, uh, Spark job stage task, transformations, cache, all the logical planning, how does it work, reading the data, handling corrupted data, the core PySpark operations which we can do programmatically, joining types, joining strategies, how we can use Spark UI, writing the data efficiently, and doing the merge and upsert operations efficiently. So these we shall learn with a high priority. And the user defined function, normally these are not widely used, but we shall basically try out one example and we shall be knowing what is UDF and how to use it. And in terms of job and cost optimization, so at data engineer level, it is low only because a senior data engineer or architect people, they will guide how they can optimize their job. They themselves, it's not that important. And Spark itself, it is a very big service. So at initially we can avoid these things, like in PySpark we can avoid learning about pivot, rollup, cube, which are complex topics. Spark streaming, this again, working on batch data, it is more than enough to become a data engineer initially. And working on any streaming data, it is not required and not a mandatory service to be worked on, because even after working for 8 years I have never worked on streaming in an actual project. I have learned a lot about it, but project wise it, the requirements are still less as compared to batch processing. And Spark ML and Spark Graph, these are again, this one is for data scientists, and this one is very specific use case, so we can avoid learning it. And after we have learned all these core things about Spark, then along with Spark comes the Delta Lake, because that's how we store the data. And Delta Lake also, it is the most important thing after Spark, or along with Spark also I can say. And within Delta Lake, we shall focus these topics on a high level, like how we can use time travel, acid transaction, internally how these things are stored in Delta Lake. That also we shall focus on. This gives more confidence and more knowledge also how things work, and how we can use optimize and vacuum operations. These things we shall focus as a high priority. And delta cloning, this one, like we shall try out one or two example. We shall be knowing what is shallow and deep cloning and all. And liquid clustering and change data feed, these two topics are very, I would say, not new, but like not frequently used. So if you just know what this is, not going into too much detail, that is good enough. So with Spark and Delta Lake, you have become a good knowledge, you have got a good knowledge how to process big data and how to store it efficiently, and then to manipulate the data in an easy manner. We use SQL language. SQL language itself, it is very easy to learn, and almost everybody knows it. Even non data engineering people, they also use it a lot. So SQL, all the core operations, right? How we can access the data, like creating and creating different table, refreshing and all, reading and writing into table, and selecting columns and all, applying some conditions. Join is the most important operation. And in terms of aggregation, basic aggregations we shall focus on, like group by, having multiple group by and all. And then like there in SQL also, there are a lot of advanced topic like grouping set, roll up, cube. So these we don't need, even we don't use in projects a lot. And approximate, count, distinct. So how we can use approximate functions, these also like we shall not focus much. And window functions, this is a important topic, but it is a medium priority. If you know everything else very well, then you can focus less, but this is also a good to have and good to learn feature, to do all how we can use all these window functions. And within this window function also, there are so many things. So something called is range or row between with frames is there. So this one we can focus less. We normally we don't use it. And in terms of sorting and sampling, these we shall learn. And as a sample command or table sample, this one we can focus less. And similarly, casting and all, we shall know how to cast the data. And working with the complex data types like array, map, structs, or like a user defined function or a user defined aggregate function. These we don't need to focus much. And in terms of DDL and optimization, so doing some basic operation, we shall learn these in detail. But working on partitions, working on properties, computing the statistics and all, so these at a starting level we can focus with low priority. And in terms of views, views is a simple topic, so we shall learn it, how we can use simple views, how we can use temporary views and all. And in terms of security and governance also, there are many SQL commands like granting and revoking access, and how we can apply row level and column level security in Databricks. So those SQL part, we don't need to focus much. So these are all the things we shall focus towards SQL. And now, after learning these three things, programmatically, we have got good knowledge how to process the data. But what platform we shall use to process all this data and use these services? That is where Databricks comes into picture. And Databricks itself, it is a very big service. They have launched so many new features, and it is very widely used as well. So in Databricks, especially, it can become confusing what all things we shall learn as a priority. So here, these are the must-have features. Then I have categorized good to have, and then some features are for future purpose. So must-have features, these are the ones we shall focus as a high priority. And if you learn these, this is good enough to uh, become a data engineer. So let's go through these one by one. So obviously, to write the code, we use notebooks in Databricks. To write SQL queries, we use a SQL editor. To orchestrate those notebooks, we use workflow jobs. Again, workflow and jobs, they have three categories. So we can create a orchestration job. Simple job is there that we shall learn as a high priority. And recently, they have introduced a Lakeflow Connect as well for data ingestion. So that is something like not widely used. We can avoid it as of now. It is not much needed as at this point of time. And then Delta Lake, like we covered, so we shall learn it in detail. Auto loader is also, we shall understand how we can load incremental files using this. Cluster wise, so normally for data engineers, clusters are created by senior people, but they shall be knowing what are all purpose, general purpose, serverless clusters and when to use them. And in terms of Unity catalog, they shall have basic knowledge what it is and for what purpose it is used, and configuring the things within Unity catalog, that comes at a medium like a SDE and architect level, not much at the DE level. And AI coding assistant, this is again an assistant. We shall know how to use it efficiently, but it is to become a data engineer, it is not that important. But we shall know how to write code efficiently. That's where we shall learn it. And in Databricks, there are so many system tables. We can do lot with them. So we shall have some basic knowledge what all tables are there and how we can use them. For instance, how can we calculate the job of the cost? How can we see what all tables are there into our catalog? So some basic things we shall learn. But there are so many tables, learning everything also, it is not required. So, like I have mentioned here, these are must have features. So, these are the core things we must learn. And if you learn all these in detail, you become very efficient. Then others are optional. So, others, if you are if you are proficient with these and you have more time, then you can go for others. Otherwise, you can avoid the other things for these. So for example, Delta Live Table, these are mainly used for streaming data. So we can avoid at a starting level. But this in itself, it is a very good technology. Databricks is focusing a lot. So in future, you can learn it. Similarly, like security RBAC, asset bundle, these things are mainly like taken care by the senior people or other team. So we don't need to focus much. Asset bundle, this is again mainly for CI/CD purpose, so we can avoid it initially. Dashboards and alerts, these are created by other other the BI teams. So we don't need to focus much. But if we want, we can create a quick dashboard in Databricks. It's just a 10 minutes job. And lakehouse monitoring and playing around Databricks APIs, this is not required, but these technologies are there. So knowing these after some experience, that is when these becomes useful. Otherwise, if let's say there is some need for using Databricks APIs, so senior people, they will let the data engineers know that we need this in project, and then they can learn. By default, junior people or data engineering level people, they don't need to learn everything at the start. And Databricks, it has so many new services coming in, especially related to AI, web apps, and all. So all these technologies, these are for future purpose. So in 2026, I can say like if you are becoming a data engineer, these are not mandatory. You can avoid learning these. But if you are already a data engineer and want to enhance your skill to be ready for future projects and future requirements, then you can learn these. So that's how like it is there. So I have prepared this list. You can go through this if you want. And next comes the Python. So even though like PySpark is also enough to do data engineering or the core operations, but many times to do things dynamically and play around the data, we shall be knowing at least one programming language, and Python is the best one. Within Python also, we don't need to learn everything, but basic like syntax and control statements we shall learn. In terms of functions, we shall be knowing how to define and return arguments, working with like a variable argument, lambda or anonymous function, decorators. These we can focus less initially. And in terms of list and sequence, this is very important. We use it on like a regular basis, so we shall focus a lot on it. And in terms of enumerate, zip, and these operation, we can focus low. Dictionaries, this is the heart of Python, so we shall learn it. String, everybody plays around, so the core operation we shall learn. And a regular expression and all these are need basis, so we can avoid learning much. And tuples and set, these I have put medium. We shall be knowing what are these, but going too much detail, that is not required. And then there are these standard or basic libraries. This is like playing around operating system or JSON or math related function. So this is very easy. We shall obviously focus on it. File wise, we shall be knowing how to read and write data properly. Playing around with binary data, that is not much required. And modules and all, obviously we will need to use lot many modules. So we shall be knowing how to use various modules, but how we can create our own module, that is not much required at a starting level. And exception handling, like how to use try except finally, we shall be knowing in detail. But raising custom exceptions and creating our own custom classes, that much level it is not required. And also object oriented programming, so as a programming itself, it is very interesting. And like in future you shall obviously learn, but if you are just getting started, you shall avoid it because it can become confusing. And doing a simple single flow of code, that is good enough in Python. Classes, objects, and all, we shall it is not required to play around. And normally in common data engineering codes or reusable notebooks, we don't use it much. And when it comes to generators, so that is where like yield kind of function we don't normally use. But this kind of expression, like where x is in some range, or the iterator class, these we use a lot, so we shall focus on it in detail. And playing around multi-threading and concurrency things, these are not much required at an initial level. So that is how these are the things we shall focus in Python. So now we can say that the core part it is done. Next, moving on to the data modeling. So we don't need to go into too much detail, but just knowing about like slowly changing dimensions, what are type, 1 to 3, and what is star snowflake schema, and what is normalization. This is good enough. Only these three things if we cover, that covers the data modeling perspective. And next comes the Azure or cloud related technologies, these two that I had recommended. So if you are in Azure, then you can go through, otherwise you can skip these. So in Azure Data Factory, so because this also can be a complex service in itself, that is why like I have specially categorized what all things we can avoid at a starting level. And this is like a very easy service. Once we know how to use it and what area to focus on, we can learn it very easily. So in terms of ADF, first, to connect with data sources, we use linked services. Then we create data sets to interact with the databases and all. So these we shall be knowing obviously, and how to create these as parameterized. And integration runtime and all, we shall be just knowing what all integration runtimes are there and when to use them. Other than that, setting up and all, it is not required. Global parameter, obviously everybody uses it. We shall know how to use them efficiently. And pipeline, this is the core, or I can say the heart of ADF. So this is the most important part we have to focus on: how to create pipeline, how to use activities inside it, how to parameterize those things, how to use variables, and how we can chain pipelines, like calling pipelines from pipelines. So this is the core or the most important part we shall understand and spend time. And within pipeline, there can be so many different activities. And one activity which definitely will be there and it will be asked in interviews, obviously, it is the copy activity itself. So this is the activity we shall most focus on and learn it in as much as detail as we can. And after knowing it, we shall also be knowing how we can do incremental load using the same copy activity. And within the copy activity, there are so many options as well, and we can use something called as transformation or some mapping we can provide as a hard coded or dynamically. Those things we can focus as a low priority, that is not frequently used in projects. And in terms of data transformation, so ADF itself, it comes with a mapping data flow, which is a visual ETL editor, wherein through the UI we can drag, drop, and create transformation. It is a very interesting feature, but it is not much widely used. Very few projects use it. In most of the projects, like we prefer using Databricks notebook and PySpark code to do the transformation. That is why learning about this we shall avoid it, because it will take a lot of time to know it and practice in detail. So we can avoid it because practically it is not much required. And in ADF, there are Power Query like wrangling data flow. Those also we can avoid. And from transformation perspective, we shall mainly focus on how we shall use our notebook and job activity. And while using notebooks, how we can pass the parameters and how we can get back the values. That is the main part we shall focus on. And there are these other activities as well. Even in Databricks, they provide jar and Python activity, which we normally don't use. We can avoid it. There are these other activities also, like stored procedure, Azure function, and batch. These also we can avoid it. And control flow, this is easy part and we shall learn it definitely. We need to control the flow, like putting a for each, if else condition, lookup and get metadata, set and append variable. These things we shall focus as a priority. And web and wait activity, these we shall be just knowing what are these activities. No need to go into much detail. And parameters, obviously we shall focus. And dynamic expression, so a simple dynamic expression, we shall learn them, how we can use them properly. And complex, so we can just know, like just we shall be knowing what all things are possible. Practically doing lot of thing with a complex logic, it is not required. And in terms of triggering, this is the very important topic from both practice and interview perspective. We shall be knowing what are these three types of triggers, when to use exact ones. So this is very important. In terms of monitoring, again, monitoring the pipeline run, how we can debug any error or find out what is wrong, and how we can rerun the pipeline from the failed point. So these are the main important points we shall focus on. Alerts and notification, normally we can avoid it, or like using the default alerts in ADF, it is not much used. We normally use logic apps kind of thing through a web activity. That is the one preferred one. And in terms of CI CD, so uh, in GitHub repo integration and publishing, these are done by senior people. We can avoid it. We shall simply knowing, like we create a feature branch, we write the code and then merge into main branch. Those kind of things are enough. So these are the important parts we shall focus on. Next, I have listed many other things like ARM template, SSIS package, uh, authentication, key vault integration, RBAC, privacy related thing, and some other activities which are there, but these are not much widely used and we can avoid learning them to save our time. So if you learn the above mentioned topics, this is more than enough. And next, moving on to the important but simple service, it is ADLS. So this is mainly used to store our data, and there we shall be knowing how we can create and delete containers, and within those container how we can create, upload or delete files and folders from the ADLS accounts. And within ADLS there is something known as access tiers, like hot, cold, cool, and archive. These we shall be just knowing what are these, no need to go into much detail. And then learning about like how we can configure those access tiers, or setting up the security, managed identity and privacy. These things we can avoid at the entry level, so these are not required. So these are the topic wise details I wanted to explain. I hope you got pretty much good idea now how to learn these topics in detail and what are the important things we shall focus on while learning. So after knowing exactly what to learn, the next question comes where to learn. And this is the point where I want to keep it open ended. So I would say learn it from wherever you want, whichever resource which is giving you good or enough information about the topics I mentioned, and from where you can find it comfortable to learn. So you learn from there. And if you want to learn from me, then I have also created playlists from my side on this same channel. So I have created this detailed one on PySpark, which is complete playlist. I have created one on Delta Lake, which is also complete and very detailed. And now I have started this playlist on Databricks, where the mandatory skills, these are almost complete, will be done soon. I will be adding the others as well. I have also created some videos about interview questions, so you can go through this playlist as well if you want to. And if you want to plan a discussion with me about like interview preparation or anything else, or even for a mock interview to get some confidence, you can plan it from here. So that's all I wanted to tell here. I hope you got much pretty good idea now. If you still have any doubts, please put it in the comment section. And if you like this content, please subscribe to this channel and put a like and comment on this video and share with your friends as well. So with that, that's all for now. Thank you. Bye bye. Happy learning.